and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and for the next hour we are going to be talking about physical therapy, and our special guest will be talking about her business, Inspired Physical Rehab, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but before we begin, wait, there's more. If you have a question for this evening, please feel free to call in at 781-270-9199. We are live this evening. Or if we're not live when you're watching this, or if you have a question, comment, idea for a future episode, please feel free to email me at talk@bcattv.org. I love getting email. It's so much fun. I would like to thank the crew and staff here at BCAT who help me every week with this show. Staff members that help me out are Corey McNeil and Mike Duvall, so thank you guys for making the set look good and trying to make me look good. I know it's an impossible task, but I thank your efforts. And also Colleen Moore, who's a volunteer here and gives up her Wednesday evenings to come and talk about something fun. And lastly, I would like to thank my husband, Paul, for staying home for Daddy Date Night. Hope you're having fun putting Legos together with Gwyneth and Evan, and reading Christmas stories. So hope you're having a good evening. And Mommy will see you in the morning, Gwyneth and Evan. And now we begin our official show. I would like to welcome my guest, Rachel Buonopane. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Okay. You must have been have a hard time in kindergarten trying to well, if you're married, you probably don't have that problem. But
a lot of letters.
Poor kid. Takes up that much room on the page. Well, anyway, thank you, Rachel, for joining me this evening. And thank you for your willingness to talk about physical therapy and physical rehab. Now, it already sounds like there's a difference between the therapy and rehab, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Okay.
But first, I want to welcome you and ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what brought you into the physical therapy realm.
Okay.
As a career.
My first exposure to physical therapy was getting injured myself as a high school athlete. Mm-hmm. I had a surgery on my knee and a severe ankle sprain.
Ooh.
And went through extensive outpatient physical therapy for both.
Okay.
And
same leg?
Different legs.
Oh, okay.
And
if you're going to screw something up, you're going to do it right.
I know, I had to think about that. And I enjoyed going so much, I would look forward to it and was always asking questions and, really got involved with setting myself on the equipment. Mm-hmm. And just pursued it after high school and here I am.
Now, what kind of studying did you have to do? Was it like a master's degree or can you get something done just through course? What's the level of education that you need?
Physical therapy has evolved through the years. So
okay.
Originally it was a bachelor's. When I went through school, it was a master's degree for an entry level. And now it's at a doctorate level.
Really?
For the entry level graduates coming out.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, do you just have a master's or have you earned your PhD?
I have my master's.
Okay. Now, is it like a conditional thing where you eventually have to, or is it like a grandfathered clause?
We're grandfathered in.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So what brought you to the Burlington area? Did you go to school around here or did you grow up around here?
I grew up in Wilmington and Andover.
Okay.
And in college, moved in the city. I went to Boston University, mm-hmm. So lived in the city off campus. Settled in Arlington 13 years ago, and so I'm familiar with Burlington from both sides.
Okay.
I live north of Burlington, now I live south of Burlington.
Well,
and
probably having Leahy Clinic in close proximity helps too.
Right. I also work at Leahy Clinic.
Oh, okay.
As an inpatient therapist.
Okay.
On the weekends.
Wow, multitasking. Oops.
Yes.
So, you mentioned that getting into physical therapy was through your own personal experience in high school. So what sport did you play?
I played soccer, basketball, and softball.
Wow. Okay, so you were busy year-round.
Right.
Pretty much. Okay, I won't ask you which sport you injured yourself, but we'll let that slide. So you mentioned master's degree, now a PhD. Actually, before I get to that question, we already have a call.
We do.
Did you plant somebody?
No.
That might be on TV tonight. Okay, we have a caller. Can you hear us? And do you have
Yes,
a
I can
question?
hear you. How you doing tonight, Linda?
Hey, Richie.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
I'm going to be seeing Rachel tomorrow at 11.
Okay, so you're going to ask her a question now and give her
Well,
12
not
hours
really
to
ask
think
a
about
question. I
it?
just wanted to say she's been my physical therapist for about 2 months now. Had about 14 sessions. I've seen great improvements in my back. I have spinal stenosis. And Rachel's worked with me wonderfully over the weeks.
Excellent.
Trying to get it in bay. My pain level 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, was more like 15.
Ooh.
I'm like about a 2 thanks to her help.
Awesome.
And I also have Parkinson's disease, and we're going to start working on a program to help me with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very encouraged by all things that have gone so far.
I think he's your new poster child. Great.
Thanks, Richie.
Thanks, Richie.
All right, and we'll see you tomorrow. But to explain about the measuring, we had a thing where they had to measure the length of how far I could bend over, and I went from a 34 to an 18, which is supposed to be better than the lower number.
Right.
So explain what measuring is, because when she first mentioned measuring, I thought I was going to get a sport coat and a pair of slacks, but it works out well, and I thank you very much for the help she's done for me.
All right. Thanks so much, Richie.
All right, talk to you guys later.
Okay. So measuring. What is measuring and when is it done? When we'll get back to my questions later.
Okay. So
Since
when
it's-
a patient comes in for their first treatment,
Like an evaluation period?
it's an evaluation. So depending on what they come in for, there's several things you can measure. So one of the things we measure is range of motion. So how much a joint moves.
Okay.
There's different ways to measure it. There's different tools to measure it with.
Now, is it also measuring strength as
Yes.
well
Then
as...
there's also a standardized way of measuring someone's strength. There are several standardized balance tests.
Okay.
Watch how somebody walks. It's called the gait assessment. And
Okay.
in school, we learn how to break down the different parts of how somebody walks to see where there's a problem. We'll also look specifically at someone's posture
Okay. Yeah. Oh, man. You don't want to look at mine. Do not look at my posture.
and see how that could be affecting how
Okay.
they're moving and the pain that they might have.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, my dad just, listening to Richie talk, my dad had spinal stenosis for like 15 or 20 years, and he finally had the surgery done. And he went to physical therapy, and he basically has to relearn how to walk because he's been compensating and overcompensating for the
Right.
past 15, 20 years. He forgot to walk like a normal human being. So now he's got to learn again.
Yeah, after surgery, you have to retrain yourself because you don't need to, but your other muscles, it becomes a
Yeah.
habit, so you have to.
You've retrained the other muscles, and now
Exactly.
they've overcompensated. And okay, so what were the measurement numbers that Richie mentioned?
So I believe what he was talking about, it could have been one of two things.
Okay.
One of the tests we did was we measured how much he could bend. So he
Okay.
would bend to the side, and I was measuring how close he was to the floor with his
Oh, okay.
fingers. Another one was he had a pain index scale.
Oh, okay.
And so you ask a series of questions, and they,
Yeah, like in the
connect
heat
to a
clinic, they
certain
have the little
score.
faces. The smiley face is zero pain, and the
But this one will tally a score, and it will,
Oh, okay.
decipher a level of pain disability or
Okay.
a level of fall risk, depending on, what
Okay.
test you're doing for what patient.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the beginning.
Okay.
The beginning. So, thank you for calling, Richie. That's great. You mentioned PhD.
Yes, it's
Are
actually
there
called
other-
a DPT,
Okay. well,
Doctorate
anyway,
of Physical Therapy.
Doctorate. Okay. In addition to the doctorate therapy, doctorate, or in addition to or in place of, I'm not sure which, are there licensing that you have to go to, like a teaching certification for a public school teacher?
Yes. So once you graduate from your school with your entry-level degree, you have to take a board exam.
Okay.
To become a licensed physical
Okay.
therapist. And it's by state. It
okay.
is somewhat easy to transfer from state to state. Sometimes the test scores carry
Okay.
over. Sometimes you have to retake the exam, depending on the state. And you renew your license every 1 or 2 years. on your birth date. Very similar
that
to,
makes it-
your driver's
yeah.
license. And in the state of Massachusetts, it's not required to take courses to keep your license.
Okay.
However, most of us do.
Yeah.
We like to brush up. We like to be up on the
Now,
most
like
current.
techniques change and
Right.
practices change and
And depending on, what I'm interested in or, what new area of focus I'm getting into, I'll try to take a course in that area to
okay.
freshen myself up or become more of an expert in that area.
Because looking at your website, you do have a pretty broad range of experience.
Yes.
So did we want to go into that yet?
Sure.
Okay. Well, what kind? Richie mentioned that he had spinal stenosis, which seems like your stereotypical need for going to physical therapy. Now, what are some of the other specialties, I guess you could say,
Sure.
that you do?
Well, one of the things is I really enjoy working with patients that require a little more special attention, a little TLC. Their cases are maybe a little more involved.
Okay.
So that being said, that includes pediatrics, and
Okay.
I will see from infants to high school athletes.
Wow. Okay.
Geriatrics, so the elderly,
Mm-hmm.
and that could run the gamut of someone coming in with deconditioning due to their medical issues, someone having a disease such as Parkinson's. Some of my patients will have dementia and as well as a physical impairment,
Oh,
so
okay.
having to accommodate for that and work with them to best meet their needs.
Okay.
Patients with individuals with disabilities of all ages,
Okay.
so from infancy up until adulthood. Another area of focus that I've really enjoyed working with is bariatrics.
Now, what is bariatrics?
Bariatrics would be, it's a medical term for people that are overweight or obese.
Okay.
So I've set up my clinic to have everything in my clinic has a capacity of up to 500 pounds.
Okay.
So if someone were to come in my clinic, I don't have to say, well, you can't use that or you can't use this. They
okay.
can use everything.
Okay.
And so that is an area of focus for me, and it's really a population that I would like to reach out to and help.
Okay. Now, one of my questions for later on, because I have my little cheat sheet here. With the bariatrics, do you work with, when you're working with clients, do you work on how they manage mobility at that weight, or do you work with like a nutritionist or something else or another specialist to help them lose the weight so they don't necessarily need to abuse their bodies with the extra weight?
Right. Depending on why they come in. So there's some folks that may come in because they have an orthopedic issue. Unfortunately, being heavy makes people more prone to have arthritis because it's more wear and tear on your joints.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
So there
I
might
just
be
couldn't phrase it
patients
right.
that come in with arthritis, and one of their complications is that they are overweight. And so I have the capacity to work with them and without any restrictions in my
Okay.
clinic. An area that I'm looking to explore is small group exercise.
Okay.
So that would be more of along the lines of weight loss. So folks that are looking to get in shape but maybe don't feel comfortable being at the gym, would like to work with maybe a few people that have the same interest as them,
Okay.
and a small work group that they could exercise and not injure themselves because they're doing things properly under my instruction.
Right. Yeah.
So that is definitely an area
And
I'm
gyms
looking
can be
to
kind of
branch out.
intimidating.
Yes.
Even when you're
I'm intimidated
not,
at
yeah,
the
exactly.
gym.
Like even if you're not overweight, it's still kind of scary because
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Why did you decide to open up your own practice?
So I definitely have an entrepreneurial spirit, I would say. I was encouraged by my family. And it was just an interesting way of being in charge and being a boss, but yet still being on the front lines. So
Okay.
kind of the best of both worlds.
Okay.
Not moving up the scale and not being able to work with patients.
Okay. Now, if you did not open your own practice, you had mentioned all these, you have a broad range of expertise. If you were working in, like at Leahy, would you be able to work with pediatrics and geriatrics and bariatrics and everybody in between? Or would you just be hired by Leahy to work on pediatrics?
Oh, good question. In inpatient, you see whoever comes in.
Okay,
So
I wasn't sure if you were like pigeonholed.
Right, depending on what floor you're assigned to. So
okay.
generally, especially in a large facility, the floors are specialized. So there'll be
Okay.
an orthopedic floor, a neurological floor.
Okay.
So at that particular facility, you rotate. So you have an
Okay.
opportunity to
So
do
you
different
do
things.
rotate. Okay.
Yes.
So that's not necessarily a deciding factor, but you wanted to kind of see the big picture.
Right.
Oh, okay. And how did you choose that name? I think we, in planning tonight, we had a little email correspondence, and you kind of referred to indirectly of the naming of your business.
Right. Inspired physical rehab. So the first word, inspired. I'm inspired by my patients to do a good job, to treat them well, and I hope that in turn I inspire them to carry forward and get better and healthy and do their exercises. And the end I left as physical rehab. And sometimes I kick myself for this because it does get confused. People will, write something to me and Inspired Physical Therapy. There were a couple of places in other states called Inspired Physical Therapy, and I was looking for my own name. But I also
Got
thought
that copyright infringement thing.
right.
Yeah.
I also liked Inspired Physical Rehab because it allows me to bring in people of other specialties if and when I am to branch out. So I could bring in an occupational therapist or a speech therapist or, massage. I don't, know where the future is for me, but I felt if I had a more comprehensive name, it'd be easier to bring somebody on and not have to change my name.
Okay.
So if I wanted to bring in other specialties.
Now, my own personal curiosity is, where does occupational therapy and physical therapy draw the line between the two of them? Because there seems, in my mind, a lot of overlap.
There is, depending on the facility and depending on, I guess, the setting, which are kind of the same thing but kind of different. So say in a school, a physical therapist is working more on the gross motor, so how a student gets from class to class. What's their posture like when they're at their desk? Is it optimal? Is it, do they need support? Whereas the occupational therapist will focus on their writing skills or their fine motor,
So
how they
hold a
cut,
pen,
how they hold scissors, how they manipulate small objects. In a facility like a rehab, a physical therapist will do, again, the gross motor, so walking, balance, larger movement strength. And an occupational therapist will focus on ADL, so activities of daily living. So how someone would dress themselves, how somebody could utilize the bathroom appropriately if they were having trouble with that, getting in and out of a shower. Still the fine motor, so working on utensils, eating. There's a lot of work with cognitive in occupational therapy. But the overlap is someone's going to walk to the bathroom. So will a physical therapist help somebody in a bathroom? Yes. Will an occupational therapist help somebody walk? Yes, because they need to do that to get to the bathroom. So there is overlap in that way.
Yeah, because a friend of mine is an occupational therapist for infants up to 0 to 3 years old. So I'm thinking, your website said that you kind of work with that population. So I'm like, they're 6 months old. How can there be differences? So,
there is.
Sorry.
There is.
Okay.
And some people will just grossly divide the body, and they say occupational therapy is the top half, and physical therapy is the bottom half. And it really isn't just a line like that.
That seems to be a little too black and white for me.
Yeah, there isn't really a line like that, but that's how some people view it.
Okay. Now, I think we kind of touched upon this, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to elaborate your, again, the website, which I love the website. It was very informative. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is cool. Oh, we have to check this out. Okay, it referred to a special population. Now, did you have something in mind when you defined a special population?
Yes. So the list that we had
Okay.
discussed, minus, I left 2 out, orthopedics and neurological.
Okay.
Orthopedics generally isn't considered special. That's kind of what everybody's doing in
Yeah,
outpatient.
I mean, that's kind of your stereotypical,
Right.
oh, I break my leg, I recover, I have to go to
Right.
physical therapy. Okay.
So for me, the special populations are those patients that need a little more TLC, that really need the
Okay.
one-on-one. In my clinic, I see each patient individually for their
Okay.
whole session. There is an overlap.
Okay.
If there were to be an overlap, it would be while you were, laying down with electrical stimulation or heat on. But I'm not running exercise with several patients at once. Each patient gets individualized attention. And I find that there's certain populations that really require that level of attention. And those are,
Well, plus today, everybody seems to be multitasking. It's kind of nice to be that individual.
it is
You know,
nice.
hey, it's my time, it's me time,
Right. And I think
all about
I
me.
think the patients appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
Gee, I kind of like that idea too. Okay, what is, again, I think we kind of just mentioned this, your typical sports medicine profile. Is that like the orthopedic, the athlete who injures him or herself?
right,
Or, okay.
right. So,
Wasn't
someone
sure if there was more to that.
that injures themselves or has, a straightforward orthopedic procedure. And not to say that I don't work with those patients. I do work with those patients on a daily basis.
Okay.
But that's
Plus a whole lot more.
yeah, and that's kind of what everybody's doing. So I kind of wanted to reach out to the folks that maybe feel a little lost at another facility and have them, feel comfortable in my niche.
Okay. Now, how are clients referred to you?
Good question.
Do you know? I mean, or do just people just knock on your door and say hi?
Sometimes they do. So any patient that comes to physical therapy in the state of Massachusetts, we do have direct access. So you could come to us without getting a doctor's referral. However,
Okay.
insurance requires it.
Okay. Ah, love
So
insurance.
you do need to get a doctor's order / script
Okay.
from your doctor. However, most people find out about me from other means, so word of mouth.
Okay.
Patients
Which is how
that
I found you. Thank you,
Yes.
Richie.
Patients that I've already seen have told somebody about me, or friends of friends. Different specialty programs that I have outreach to and have formed relationships with have let patients know about me.
Okay.
So there's various ways that you can kind of get your name out there and
Okay.
get people to come to you.
Okay. Because, I'm just, thinking with Leahy in close proximity of you, that may help. And then also they have a lot of the, as far as the geriatric goes, there's a lot of assisted living facilities in the Burlington area. They just opened one on Middlesex Turnpike.
Yes,
Is that one open yet?
it is.
Okay, and there's 2 on Mall Road.
Right.
And I wasn't sure what else. But, I mean, I can imagine, hopefully, you're getting phone calls from them.
Yes,
saying-
a lot of patients that live in an assisted living facility, they will be seen by home care therapists.
Oh, okay.
So that's a different realm.
Okay.
There are some that,
So now we have physical therapy, occupational therapy, and the home therapy. Oh, geez. Okay.
it's a home physical therapist.
Okay.
But considering whether a patient is homebound or not homebound. So the ones that,
Okay.
are more mobile and can come out. Some folks in assisted livings have their own vehicles, or, there's transportation, or
bus.
family members will bring them. Yes, you are all welcome to come see me at my clinic.
Yeah, after I, again, looked at that wonderful website, driving down the street, I'm like, oh, that's where Rachel is. Go drive by it every day.
Right.
Yay! So, when somebody's referred to you in order to have insurance coverage, now does insurance say, okay, you could go 5 times, or will insurance give you a little bit of flexibility, say, until you reach, the measurements that Richie was talking about, until you reach these measurements?
Right.
How do they work it?
They all work a little bit differently. So you
Okay.
become a master of
Insurance.
a lot of things.
Master
or,
of paperwork.
Or maybe not a master. I have a lot of cheat sheets.
You
But
need it.
some will
Okay.
offer a patient so many visits per year. And
Okay.
so that's pretty straightforward. Other plans will authorize a certain number of visits, and then if the patient needs more, you send in paperwork to justify it, doing more measurements, and you either get the response or you don't.
Okay.
So it's, you know, it's good to have the objective measures to have some facts behind what you're saying.
The concrete, yeah.
Right.
Because I can imagine it could be relatively subjective too.
Right. So
So
it's
it's nice to have
important
those,
to
yeah.
have the concrete as well.
Because we know how flexible insurance companies can be. Okay, we'll move on. Now, we talked about licensing in the general scope of physical therapy. With all of the other specialties, I know we're kind of backtracking a little bit, but do you need special licensing for all of those special areas that you work with?
No, you don't. You can go and get a specialized certificate. I'm not using the proper word here. But you can be certified in a special area, such as
Okay.
geriatrics or pediatrics.
Okay.
And you get additional letters after your name for that.
Okay.
And I've found that I've considered pursuing them, and then I talk myself out of it because I don't want to make people think that I can't see the other specialties as
Okay.
well. So how I feel that I've, you know, gathered my ability to work with the variety of populations I've listed is in the experience I've had in different settings,
Okay.
in working with each of those areas over
Now,
the years.
Just a sidebar, because I'm like the queen of tangents. You had mentioned earlier that your own practice is fairly new. How long have you been practicing physical therapy leading up to this point?
So I'm coming up on 13 years this
Wow,
January.
okay. Without divulging how old you are. I won't go into that. Okay. So you've worked with all these different populations throughout the 13 years. So now okay.
Right.
So, because I wasn't sure if you said you had to get relicensed every year on your birthday. So I wasn't sure if with those specialties you also needed to get, you know, a general license and renew that specialty each
Right.
year as well. There's a lot to learn. It's a lot to keep straight. No wonder why I have cheat sheets. I have pages of cheat sheets over here. Now, you said the inspiration comes from your clients. Now, what is your goal when working with particular clients? Because in your stereotypical physical therapy scenario, somebody breaks their leg. They don't use it for 8 weeks. You teach them how to walk again and build up the muscles again. That seems pretty concrete for a goal.
Right.
What happens if you're working with a specialty population like someone with Parkinson's or someone with muscular dystrophy, or where they're not ever going to get cured?
Okay.
How do you measure that, and what is a goal? How do you
So-
aim for something?
Right. So you speak with the patient about, you know, what's their specific concern at this time. So it may be, you know, I had somebody come in and say, I used to help set the table, and I can't do that because my arms are so tight.
Okay.
So that's one of our functional goals, is for her to get back to that activity. Yes, you're not going to completely fix everything that's going on. So you set something that's important to that person, something functional. And then there's also goals around range of motion, strength, and then safety, balance. And you set somebody off to continue to work on those things on their own. Generally, people that have something more involved end up cycling back for therapy
Okay.
here and there. And that's just part
And
of
those
their...
goals can probably change
Right.
as the
Right.
conditions themselves change.
Right.
Okay. Now, do you help them in setting those goals, or is it pretty much client-driven?
It's both.
Okay.
So, you know, from the measurements I take, I have very objective goals. But then it's also important to tie them into something functional, because
Okay.
it's not relevant enough just to have somebody move from here to here.
Yeah.
There should be a reason why they need to do that.
But also not setting such big expectations like, I want to run a marathon again. Well,
Right. Right. And that's something that I'm pretty good at, because at helping a patient kind of define that out, because reaching that huge goal can be sometimes disheartening for
Yeah.
people, because they say, oh, it's been 8 weeks and I can't run a marathon.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll point out, well, you walked 10 feet the first day you were here, and today you walk 70.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to see those little steps
Okay.
and appreciate those. So it's good to have we call them short-term goals.
So you're also a psychological therapist too, you know.
Yes,
Psychologist.
well, people do like to talk to their physical therapist about, you know, their life and their issues, and it's a good place to
And then at
vent.
nights you bartend. No, sorry. I digress. Now, okay, sorry. Did you have anything else to add? I don't want to cut you off.
No.
Okay. Because I totally changed the subject completely. Now, I think the one bad thing about the cheat sheet is a lot of times we cover it and then I circle back. But we talked about it a little bit, about the broad spectrum of clients that you deal with. Do you find this, are most physical therapy practices like that, or is that pretty much what makes you stand out?
I'd say a lot of physical therapy practices will take people in various ages. I'd say where some people might cut off is they don't see people below a certain age.
Okay.
So into the younger children. What I really like about it is all day long I see totally different things. So I am not stuck in a rut. I'm not cookie cutter.
Okay.
I'm not doing the same program with every person that I see. I'm not doing the same program with each person when they come back the next time. So it's very invigorating. You know, every day is new, every day is fresh, and someone that came in with, you know, X, Y, and Z complaints on Monday might come in on Wednesday with A, B, and C.
Okay.
And so even though we're working on the same diagnosis, we may approach it differently because something is tweaking them a little bit differently. And so we change their program to accommodate for that.
Okay. How often does somebody have to come see you? Is it once a week, twice a week, daily, or does it depend on their circumstances?
It varies. So generally an outpatient, you would see somebody between 1 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
Unless, you know, a severe surgery like a total knee replacement might require more than that.
Ooh, that just sounds so painful. Now, okay, I just thought of this. So this is not on my cheat sheet, so if you don't want to answer it, feel free to say, I don't want to answer that.
Okay.
Now, with the broad range, do you ever encounter something that you've never seen before? And if you have, what do you do? Do you have like some kind of physical therapy network of other therapists, or do you research it online, or you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
So a little bit of both. Someone might come in with a diagnosis you haven't seen before. But one thing to always remember is when you break it down to those impairments of range of motion, strength, balance, you can always find something that you're comfortable with.
Okay.
But I will pursue a network of people that I know if I'm questioning something. I also have kept many of my books and notebooks from college, and will research things there. The internet is a valuable resource,
yes.
and
Yes,
you know,
but not everything you read on the internet is true.
this is true. But you know, sometimes it's just freshening up, you know, on something. Oh, you know I've heard of this, but I haven't seen it recently. Let me just brush up, and you know, and I'm generally pretty open with the patients about that, and I'll even ask them for their level of expertise on their own diagnosis. So.
Yeah, because they've more than likely have seen other specialists or other.
Right. And everybody's a
providers.
specialist of their own body.
That's true.
So.
I haven't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Then I'm in a lot of trouble. Okay, let's break down some of the areas that you cover in a little more detail.
Okay.
You know, we started talking about geriatric care. What is actually covered in geriatric? You don't have to be old to be, you know, it sounded like before you don't have to be old in order to be in one of the geriatric practices or
Right. I
fields or
mean,
something.
generally, geriatrics is a category considered for the elderly.
Okay.
So, there's certain illnesses that go along with being elderly that, people didn't have in years past where
Okay.
we're all living longer and...
You mentioned like you work with some dementia patients.
Right.
That has to be hard.
It involves you to think outside the box, think a little more creatively.
Okay.
You may cue somebody one way and it doesn't work, and so you need to cue a different way or bring them through the motion, show them how to do the motion, demonstrate the motion.
Okay.
And like I said, the next week it might be a completely different way. You need to show them how to do it.
Okay.
And sometimes you just need to scrap it and do something different because it's just not working that day.
So with geriatrics, sometimes, does somebody need a specific diagnosis like dementia, like arthritis, or sometimes it's just old age? Do you need a special diagnosis, or can you just come and say, it hurts to walk? I need help setting the table. I need help functioning because I'm, 98 years old and...
Right. I mean, if you would never get a prescription for somebody and it would say old age.
Yeah, well...
But it may say gait disturbance or back pain or knee pain.
Okay.
And you focus on that impairment.
Okay,
and work
so it
on
could
that.
be broken down into specific elements.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So there is hope for me after all. Okay, what is neurological trauma? I read that and the term scared me.
Okay, so trauma would include people that fall or in an accident. So, for an orthopedic, that would be a broken bone. For a neurological, that would be a head injury. So,
Okay. Like a concussion or?
Concussions and beyond. So there's several different levels of internal bleeds in your brain that can cause you to have trouble moving.
Like a stroke? Would that be considered?
A stroke wouldn't be, it's similar but a little bit different. So, if someone fell and hit their head,
Okay.
that would be a bleed from that incident. So, along the lines of traumatic brain injury.
Oh, okay.
So I did have a lot of experience working with that in a rehab setting, and was on the neurological floor for a year and a half and really enjoyed it. Very creative, very different. Every patient was different, and there's a lot more involved. There can be behavioral components, there can be cognitive involvement.
Like if you get hit in the head real hard, there's got to be other issues.
Right. So, it was very, very challenging, very interesting.
Okay. Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
That's my life, never a dull moment.
Okay. Now I just brought up stroke. Now if somebody is recovering from a stroke, are there conditions that limit or restrict you from working with them? Because, oftentimes you hear if someone has a stroke, they have speech issues where they can't talk anymore, like communication.
So I don't,
that?
I don't view those things as limitations. I view them as challenges.
Opportunities.
So finding different ways to communicate.
Okay.
So generally someone that does have those impairments is probably seeing a speech therapist. And, whether they communicate by different means or whether I need to communicate by different means, you learn that as you get together and you work with that and accommodate for their needs.
Okay.
So we can work on what we're working on physically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, so let's move into, or is there anything else in neurological that I haven't asked that you find as common threads?
So Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
And that, runs the gamut as well. There's different levels, or people are in a different stage and are working on different things. MS, multiple sclerosis.
Okay.
Also wide spectrum of presentation, and very challenging, very interesting. And I enjoy working with those patients as well.
Okay. Now with some clients and some conditions, there's also a pharmacological, they're on medication.
Sure.
Now, sometimes medications impact individuals very strangely. Do you ever have the opportunity to work with the physician to get a nice balance with the medical, with the medicines, with the prescriptions? Because sometimes they can inhibit physical issues as well,
Right.
or create
Right.
physical issues.
I am not a prescriber of medication, and I don't pretend to be,
Yeah.
but I will alert physicians to things that I'm seeing that, they might not see in a physician's visit in the doctor's
Okay.
office if the patient's, say, sitting in a wheelchair,
Okay.
where I might see it more when I'm having them move physically. So in my levels of communications with doctors, I will let them know what I'm seeing.
Now, do you generally
And-
communicate with a physician?
Yes, so
Okay.
when you, just like with the insurance companies to get authorizations, we also need our plans of care signed off on by a physician.
Okay.
So there's communication back and forth regarding that, and if I know that a patient is going for follow-up on their condition, I will generally write a little summary for the doctor as
Oh,
well.
okay. Sorry, another question that just popped in my head after talking to you.
You're cut off.
I'm cut off. Okay, no more questions. Stick with the script. Stick with it. Okay, orthopedics. Do you have anything to add about orthopedics?
Orthopedics, standard fare, it could be, and this is orthopedic/neurological,
Okay.
so back surgeries.
Okay.
Knee replacements, hip replacements,
Okay.
hip fractures that have been repaired, any bone that's been repaired, essentially. If someone has a torn meniscus, has arthroscopic surgery, a rotator cuff repair, bunch of things. Or someone comes in and they have a strain in one of their muscles, or they're coming in and they're not running right when they play sports, and it could be posture related, and they need to work on different things to maximize how they're moving so it doesn't hurt.
You're wearing the wrong shoes. Sorry. Just when you said not running right posture, it's like maybe you should wear a new pair of shoes. Oh, sorry. Okay. I think we kind of talked about this, but let's bring it up again with bariatrics. Do you actually help with the weight loss and nutrition, or just the functionality of their current
Okay.
condition?
So in the group exercise, obviously, that would be
Okay.
focusing weight loss. If someone was coming in for, say knee pain or knee surgery,
Okay.
they're,
Because weight loss is still a gradual process.
Right.
But it's like, when they come in being, 350, 400 pounds with knee issues. Well, you're going to work on their knee issues now, but you don't want them to have to live with that for the rest of their lives.
Right.
So is there some way, do you work with a nutritionist, or are they, do you encourage them to work with a nutritionist to lose the weight so as not to continue the same stress on said knees or whatever?
right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I like to give people information and point them in the right directions. I don't judge my patients. So if it's something that they're interested in working on and they're ready to work on, I'm there to help them.
Okay.
If it's something that they're not ready to face, I will support them in their current situation.
Okay.
I don't like to make people feel uncomfortable. So I don't push issues, but
Okay.
I'll point them out. I'll give somebody the facts and say, if you were 10 or 20 pounds lighter, it would be different on your joints. That's a fact.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need to lose that. If you're ready for it and that's something you're motivated to do, I will support you in that. And I could help them with that physically.
Okay. Because sometimes you're mentioning it, they would listen, whereas another family member doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So, okay.
Right.
I know I cut you off. I wasn't sure if I interrupted you mid-sentence. All right. All right. I got to stop doing that. Now, again, reading the website, sometimes this is dangerous. What is deconditioning related to obesity? Or deconditioning?
So
What is that
somebody
term?
that It's kind of like I would consider, and this happens with multiple conditions, like a snowball effect.
Okay.
So say you got heavy, so then you became less active. Now you're less active, you get heavier. So they perpetuate each
okay.
other.
Like the little catch-22 thing.
Right.
Okay.
So you kind of need like a jump start to
like my
break
dad,
the cycle.
you know, trying to avoid
Relearn how to-
surgery and
exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
relearn how to walk.
Right. So sometimes you just need to jump onto a new path.
Okay.
And
You need
that's
that kick in the butt. No,
yeah. I don't kick anybody in the butt.
I know. That's why I stopped before I finished the sentence. Okay. So deconditioning is like a retraining to get them on that other path.
Right.
The gentle nudge, not the kick in the butt, the gentle.
Right.
Turn this way, turn this way, turn this way. Okay. In pediatrics, do you feel more comfortable with a particular age? Like, do you work with newborns or infants, or do you prefer to start with 3 and up so when they can actually talk or potty train or, you know,
Any age.
any age?
And I think the biggest part of that is just that I love children. So, you know, working with an infant, most infants end up in early intervention.
Okay.
We had talked about that on the email.
Mm-hmm. That's actually my next question is,
Yeah,
you know, partnering
but sometimes
organizations.
they need more. And,
Okay.
you know, early intervention is fantastic. I absolutely love early intervention, but their resources are strapped. And so they might not be able to see a child as much as the family wants. So they want additional therapies to, you know, you work in conjunction. Right now I'm working with a baby, and he also was seen by early intervention.
Okay.
And, you know, we communicate on what we're doing and, you know, working together as opposed to in opposition.
Okay. Now, does somebody like EI contact you, or early intervention contact you, or is it like the individual client that says early intervention can't give me as much attention as I want? Can you supplement it? How does
It could go either way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are there other areas that you have, you know, it sounds to me like early intervention is a partner for you, or at least, you know, you have a working
towards-
relationship.
Yeah.
Are there other groups or organizations or target audiences that you work with?
Sure. So I have been in talks and am pretty open with Department of Developmental Services,
Okay.
DDS, so working with people of all ages with disabilities.
Okay.
So, you know, working with them and getting some referrals through them for clients that are a little more involved.
Oh, okay.
I've also outreach to different specialties, so orthotic companies in the area, so people that make braces or prosthetics for people with disabilities, or people that have had a trauma, or people that have neurological deficits. And, you know, whether they go to them first or whether I see them first and let them know about this facility, so kind of like a little bit of referring back and forth.
Okay.
And wheelchair and equipment companies are also, you know, a good partnering source for me
okay.
as well. So,
All right. Now, do you partner with other types of therapies like massage therapists or chiropractors or acupuncture, or is your practice still kind of new that you haven't?
I'm still trying to build that network. I
Okay.
do definitely have patients that see all of them.
Everybody. Okay.
And it's good. The patients that I have that do are open to all the clinicians, and they, you know, people have brought me exercises that they're doing with the personal trainer, and have gone back and said, oh, well, my physical therapist is doing this with me, and so they work it into their program there.
It'd probably be a good thing to, you know, have
It
that open
is.
communication too, or else
It
you might
is.
undo some of the work that is
Right.
being done.
And that's definitely something, you know, this year, branching into my second year of making more connections in those areas. So, you know, with chiropractors in the area, with fitness centers, and, you know, especially where talking about trying to get that small group exercise, you know, I would view my program as not competing with the gym, but maybe as a stepping stone.
Right.
So give the people a head start to feel
'Cause
comfortable with the
if
workout.
you haven't exercised in a really long time, you probably don't want to subject yourself to going to a gym where people do it as a hobby.
Right. So,
And
you
have-
know,
yeah, okay.
get comfortable with it, and then, you know, go over to the gym if that's what you're ready to do. And or if someone is, you know, working in a gym and they see, you know, a client that is clearly in distress or in pain or doing something wrong, you know, they could send them over to me and
Learn to do it right
yeah,
first.
get them fixed up and get the back of the gym pain-free.
Now let's undo the damage you did. Let's teach you how to do it correctly, and then you can go back to the
Right,
Y or wherever. Okay. Your practice has only been open for about a year now.
Right.
Where do you see your practice in, say, 5 years?
Okay.
Do you have a 5-year plan?
I have. It's changed quite a bit.
What is it
So,
today?
You know, from before I started to when I started to today.
And it'll probably change again tomorrow.
Right. So whether, you know, sometimes I think multiple locations. Sometimes I think keep it small. Sometimes I think of maybe bringing on 1 or 2 clinicians or branching out and having another specialty join me.
Okay.
So I'm kind of all over the place with,
Kind
you
of
know,
whatever opportunity arises, you'll
Right.
look into it. Oh,
Right. I'm trying not to hone
Keeping
in
your
on any one
options
thing
open.
so I can stay positive and not be disappointed if I don't, you know, reach what I was thinking of. So I have ideas.
Ideas are good.
Yes.
Ideas are good. So the same thing for like your 10-year plan.
Right.
You know, it's like, well, it depends on where I show up in 5 years. Okay. Now, you're also active in your community.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are these just work-related things or just volunteering, or how do you get more involved in your community, like outside of your professional life? What made you decide to do that?
I'm a big proponent of giving back. So some of the first things I did was I got involved in teaching youth. So I taught dance at the dance studio I went to growing up in Wilmington,
Cool.
Debbie's Dance
Okay.
Studio. I did that in my early 20s.
Okay.
I had been taking Kempo karate in Belmont and
Okay.
helped out with teaching the younger kids there while I was there. And then I got back into basketball. So there's a recreation center in Arlington where I live called Fidelity House.
Okay.
And I'm very involved there. And I was coaching, assistant coaching girls basketball, middle school age. I did that for 4 or 5 years. I did stop this year because of the business to kind of get things
anytime
going.
you start your own business, that's
Yeah,
like
I had to focus on that, but
triple.
I
Okay.
miss it horribly. Still keep in contact with a lot of the girls, and you know, it's very important to
And when
be-
they injure themselves, they can come and see you.
right, exactly. Well, they have, but
Building your client base.
you know, very important for me to be a positive role model to young kids and adolescents. I get so much out of that personally, and all the involvement I have in the community is just about giving back and about, you know, personal growth. I don't get any accolades. It's not anything that I do. You know, I don't get a point professionally for doing it. It wasn't anything that was required anywhere that I worked.
Okay. And you're not really looking for physical therapy related activities
No, I
to
mean,
get
some
involved. It's
things-
just whatever you're interested in.
Yeah, a couple of
Like
the things
dance or
are
something.
similarly related. Right now I'm on the Commission for Disability in Arlington. So
Oh, what do they do?
we
Or what do you
good
do?
question. We work to help
Sorry, on the spot.
we work to help people in the community. So if there's, you know, an access issue, if there's, you know, perhaps a public location that they can't get in and out of, you know, we help
Okay.
with that. Issues with parking. A big project we're doing in town right now is trying to get all the curb cut ramps in town accessible.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, applying for grants and getting funds for that and doing a different group of curb
And
cut
convincing the town
ramps.
to plow said sidewalks in the wintertime so they
Yeah,
can.
and then, you know, and then there's that educational component of
Yeah.
reaching out to the community. Like, it's important that you shovel your sidewalk. It's important that you shovel it wide enough for a wheelchair or walker, not just for people to walk, you know, single file with
Just
their feet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I worked in Cambridge for a while, and I hated having to get to the T because it's like, okay, climb over the snowbank, and yeah.
Right, right. And another organization I'm involved in is Easter Seals. So I'm on the regional board for Easter Seals, and we are a group of young professionals that are trying to bring the next generation of professional folks to become more aware of what Easter Seals is, and get the community out there to support them.
Okay, putting you on the spot again. What is the
Easter Seals?
mission of Easter Seals?
So
well, you brought it up.
They help individuals with disabilities live, learn, work, and play. So they will assist all areas. So they run camps for children. They have a huge assistive technology department. They're really the front runners. A lot of schools will contract out to Easter Seals if a student needs, accommodations with assistive technology. And it's a fantastic organization.
Now you said regional. How big is the region? Is it like Northeast? Is it New England? Is it Eastern Massachusetts?
So we're considered the Greater Boston.
Okay.
So I believe it goes by the cities in Massachusetts. So Greater Boston, Greater Worcester, Greater Springfield. Yeah. And then there's, above us is the state board, and they cover everybody.
Now, how'd you get involved in Easter Seals? Now, do you have a personal connection, or
a personal connection?
Not to get too personal.
Oh, a friend of mine, and her name is Adriana Malozzi. She actually made my website. She is on the regional board, and her and I worked together at a previous location, and she invited me to join her. Yeah, and she's kind of opened my eyes and my family's eyes to several different programs, and gotten us involved. And
excellent. So, okay, last question, or follow up on the last question.
Okay.
Now, we mentioned that a lot of your community involvement is personal. Do you have any, how did I phrase it here? Are there professional benefits at all? Would you object to professional benefits? I mean,
I wouldn't. I mean, I think
you're not out for the professional.
I'm not, but like you said, people that I've met through sports, if they get injured, they know what I do. They know they could come to me. There's a huge network of people with disabilities that are involved with Easter Seals, so they also know about me. The Commission on Disability, obviously, I'm out there advocating for people, but then I'm also clinically working with them. So they're all interwoven, interconnected. Kind of a common thread of my interests. So.
Okay. Now, really quickly, before the show started, you mentioned that you had a 10-minute presentation to give with an organization. Is that a small business organization, or is that, are you also involved in a small business organization?
Right. So I am a member of the Mystic Valley Connection, BNI, Business Networking International. So there's different sub-segments all over the world. And we are a group, we meet in Arlington once a week, and we're a group of varying professionals. So from lawyers to contractors to designers to health and wellness specialists to accountants, financial planners.
Oh, wow.
And the difference between BNI and a Chamber of Commerce is BNI will only have one person from each specialty. So when you apply and obtain your seat, so I have the seat of a physical therapist, I'm the only one. And it's more of a, we establish relationships with each other, and we make connections and look to refer business to each other. So yesterday I had a presentation, my 10-minute presentation. We generally have one a quarter. And so I did my presentation yesterday.
But you know what? I would like to find out more about that, but
we're done?
We're done! So I do want to thank everyone for joining us, and I think I'm going to have you back for a sequel to talk more about your small business. But thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks. Good night.